afraid of talking about sex on the internet where everybody actually needs a really healthy, sex-positive view about how to be in connection with themselves in this way? What? Hello, welcome to Practice Intimacy. This is the place to be to learn all about love, sex, and how to have the best relationships you possibly can. My name is Jami Lynn. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I have a confession to make. So, I love talking about sexuality. I love learning about sexuality. I have a daily sexual practice that has been part of my life for years. And for the past 12 months now, because I've been making these videos for you for a year, I've been kind of avoiding the topic of sex. And there's a couple reasons for that. So the main reason is when I first started this channel, I got feedback from different loved ones in my family where they were like, I'm really glad that you're focusing so much on relationship. I know you work with sexuality, but I don't know, it seems like that'd be a bad idea to put that out there on the internet. And so I took that in. And then I also just have, it's so strange, but I have some internalized shame that's coming up. And I say that's strange because I don't often have a lot of sexual shame. I am very lucky. That is not part of my existence most of the time. It's in there because I grew up in the US and this is a very sex-negative culture. We were founded by Puritans. Of course, we're a sex-negative culture and a fearful culture around sex. But I've always been somebody who has had a good way of managing that and not feeling very much shame personally. And what that led me to do is to pick a career where I get to study sex and talk about sex. But that's behind a closed door in an office with people that I have to keep everything confidential. Our conversations do not leave the room. And so it's a little bit of a different feeling than coming onto the internet where publicly anyone can find videos of me talking about sexuality. And so I've been dealing with this and realizing it over the past few months and going, whoa, what the fuck? What? You're afraid of talking about sex on the internet where everybody actually needs a really healthy, sex-positive view about how to be in connection with themselves in this way? What? So, let's break that. I am done being scared. I am done letting any kind of sexual shame control the type of content that I share with you because sex is a huge part of what we do. If you are a human being on this planet, you have some kind of relationship to sexuality. Even if that relationship is, I am asexual, I don't want it, no thank you. And that means that I have to have conversations with any partner around, I'm just not interested in sex. You still have a relationship to sexuality. So everybody on this planet has some kind of relationship to it. And it is one of the most important things that we all do because we would not be here without sex. And who knows, maybe one day everyone will be grown in petri dishes. I doubt it, but it's possible. But sex is truly the bridge that brings all of life into the world. That's from trees having pollen sex, to other animals having sex, to us having sex and babies. I remember growing up, my dad used to say to me, this was one of the things that he said a lot. He had many different little sayings that are stuck in my head, but one of them was, the whole of life is about boys, girls, and babies. And I love that, even though there are parts of my brain that get a little upset about the gender. I still love it because there's truth to it. All of life is about human beings and other animals and other beings, not animals, but things like trees, the rest of life, experiencing being here and passing on their genetics in whatever way they do that so that life can continue and expand. And so all of life is sex. Why don't we feel comfortable talking about it? It's like a big, I don't know, cosmic joke that the very thing that brought us onto this planet is also something that many people are afraid to talk about. Like, that's just kind of funny. And yet I also want to name that sex has hurt a lot of people. Sex can actually be used in a way that is harmful to others, and so there's a reason why we're also fearful of it. But most of the time, that actually happens because of repression. Repressed sexuality shows up in ways that are violent, harmful, shame-filled, scary for people, rather than a more holistic view of sex, which says sex is a part of life, it is natural, it is normal. You can actually even bring it into a space where it helps you connect with the greater world and allows you to feel sacredness and wonder in your day in and day out experience. But sadly, most of us don't get that view of sex. And so what I want to do here on this platform is to give you ways to start moving more into that way of being sexual, where it's about connecting more deeply with life, experiencing yourself more whole and full and pleasure-filled, and then channeling that into other aspects of your life. I was having a conversation with a client recently, and sex is one of those paradoxical experiences where you can have like ecstatic bliss, turn on, feelings of oneness with another person, crying because it's so magical. And then another time it can be super mundane and you could be eating cereal rather than having sex and feel maybe the same way. And so it's this weird paradoxical experience that's complex. It really is. The sad thing is we often narrow sexuality down to the physical side of it. And I mean that both in the way we have sex and the way that we culturally talk about sexual issues. We talk about it in terms of what's physically happening sexually, rather than what's happening emotionally, what's happening mentally in our erotic life, or even what's happening spiritually. If you think about sex as the portal through which life emerges, then that's a pretty spiritual way of viewing it. And I don't think that we have those conversations too often in our culture, sadly. Thankfully, more and more people are doing so, which is wonderful. And more people are becoming interested in the ancient practices like Tantra, Taoism, Tibetan, Buddhist practices, all of these different, often Eastern ways of being sexual and connected to the experience of enlightenment and mysticism. Thankfully, that's starting to come into our culture more and more. And yet, most of us here in the West, our first exposure to sex is usually porn. Sometimes very, very unfortunate education in schools. I went to a public school in Texas. It was terrible. There were things that I had to learn later in life from a book, and I was like, why the hell didn't they teach us this? This makes sense. Or worst of all, there are some people who don't learn anything about sex until they start having sex, which is so problematic because there are actually a lot of things to know about how to listen to your body, how to negotiate with a partner to make sure that everyone is safe. And we don't know how to do that often because we don't feel safe and comfortable talking about sex. So here's what I want to know. The reason I'm making this particular video is because I would like to hear from you about some things you're interested in. What would you like to know in the realm of sex? And I can give you many, many different views and lenses, and I intend to on this channel, but I would love to hear specific things that you're interested in. So the different lenses might be just the psychology of sexuality, or the neurobiology of sexuality, or you might be more interested in these ancient wisdoms, the sexual practices from our global ancestors. For that one, I will say I have the most training and education in Tantra practices from India, but I'm also very interested in the more Buddhist, Tao, or Tibetan practices. So we can cover all kinds of things here, but let me know what your interests are. Let me know what you're wondering about. leave comments for me, and I will add it to the list of things that we cover in 2022. I'm so looking forward to finally fully jumping into this topic with you. I'm not sorry it took me this long, because I was working through my own process, and I never think there's anything to apologize about that, but I am ecstatic that we're finally here and that we're going to cover a topic that means so much to me, because we need to talk about it. Sex is a part of life. Sex is a huge part of life. So we're going to have some fun with this topic. I'll see you in next week's video. Bye for now.